Hello and welcome to Your Schools. I'm your host, Lynn Turner Fitzgerald, and my guest is a familiar face now to all of us, Dr. Erwin Garcia, Superintendent of School District 2. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
There's a lot going on in School District 2. And every time I think about doing these interviews, I always come back to you, because you're the newsmaker. Lots going on. Let's start with charter schools. That's brand new to this district.
Yeah, so we have received approval by the State Board of Education, also by the OPI, to open our charter schools for the fall of 2024. We're getting ready for the school year. 3 charter schools, the early college high school, allowing our students to receive an associate's degree on the same day they obtain their high school diploma. That will be the first in the state of Montana. It's not a new concept for the nation, but a new for the state.
Yeah,
and,
at no cost.
Yeah, at no cost to the students so far.
Okay.
But if the charter school expands, we're going to have to review funding mechanism for tuition costs. But right now, we have a plan to take care of that.
Now, when you talk about expansion, what does that look like? What would
Meaning, there are talks for the future as a long-term vision to increase the footprint of the early college high school. But of course, right now, we have to start.
Sure.
We just want to have the ball rolling, getting more kids into college pathways. We already have the dual credit program, which is amazing for our kids, and we want to expand on the dual credit program. We also have AP, which is great for kids that want to go to those Ivy League schools. But the early college high school is unique in the sense that students actually walk out with a degree from an accredited university. We're exploring partnership and securing partnership with both Rocky Mountain and MSUB, which will be great for our kids.
Well, who will lead the instruction then? Is it a high school teacher?
Yeah, so the high school teachers will do that for the first 2 years.
Okay.
And then we'll revisit to see, okay, are we going to go to the campus so we can have the kids go to college there for the last 2 years, or are we going to have some teachers coming from those universities to our organization to be able to teach, or maybe a hybrid between the two?
Mm-hmm. Just kind of up in the air right now.
Yes. So it is, we have 2 options, and we have to start. Right now, we don't have pressure. We don't have pressure to determine what's going to happen in 2 years, because we have 2 years to continue defining what that's going to look like. But the most important thing is having the school accepted by the OPI,
right?
Obtaining the funding, and also getting students enrolled. Right now, we have about 75 students that have enrolled to the early college high school, which is great.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. Is there a special pathway to being enrolled in one of these charter schools?
Yes. So we're still allowing students to enroll, although the deadline already expired. But if someone out there is interested in enrolling as part of the early college high school, they're welcome to go to our website. There's information there for the early college high school. They can click on the link, find the information, and if that doesn't work, I highly encourage you to either send me a message through the Ask Erwin button on the top of the website, or email Dr. Gerald Hain. She's the person spearheading the charge with the early college high school.
So there would be room for more late enrollees, is what I'm hearing,
yes,
right?
but once we start, we start.
Sure, yeah.
But since we still have about 3-4 months before the beginning of the school year,
right,
we can still accept students.
Well, now, can we dial this back just a bit? Charter schools are new to Montana. What's the theory behind the advantage of a charter school? How did they come to be?
Well, charter schools allows us to increase innovation. I think that the State Board of Education and Governor Giafonte, I think what they thought about the charter school model is to allow for outside of the box type of learning, teaching and learning. So, for instance, I mean, to find a mechanism in Montana to open an early college high school where, when it doesn't exist, the charter school allows you to have that level of innovation, to have the funding, to break ground, so to speak, so we can get opportunities for kids. So the early college high school is only one of the 3 charter schools that we got approved. The other charter school is the Opportunity School and the Multilingual Academy. Right. So those are the 3 fully approved, and we are going to start in the fall of 2024.
Wow. Tell me about the Multilingual Academy. Is that high school only?
So it is intended for students in middle and high school.
Okay.
Elementary students, because of brain development, although they might not speak the language, they can easily acquire the language because of the regions of the brain and how brain develops. So we don't want to take students away from the general classroom. But for middle schools and high school, then the brain, the plasticity of the brain, and how language is acquired in the brain, and how Broca, one of the regions. Now you came to a time of your life where the language is not going to the location Broca, which was when you were in your 7 year of age or your 8th year. So now you have other mechanisms, so it's more difficult for you. You will have an accent of some kind, and so it becomes more complex. So the challenge is not attending to the needs of middle schoolers and high schoolers linguistically prevents us from allowing them the success that they are intended to experience. And then, of course, failure can turn into dropout. Could be, just students being disengaged. And then, of course, not being engaged means you're going to be probably working really early, making low income, or simply not working, and then adding to the issue that we currently have in our community with dropouts.
Right. Well, so what is the population of this? Is it a large number of students that will be needing this?
We currently have, when I arrived to the district, many people didn't know this, by the way. They think that somehow the people with linguistical needs was a small number, and all of a sudden when I arrived, the numbers just skyrocketed. Well, that's not true. When I arrived, we had about 300 students that didn't speak English as their first language.
That is surprising.
Yeah, and we had about 40 students in high school that were somewhere in the range of language acquisition, but some students, we counted about 12, that spoke no English.
Okay.
And also the addition to that is when you have a student who has come through the refugee program, they might be already juniors or seniors by age with no credits. Oh. So then not only you have to acquire a language, but you're credit deficient, and we don't have many pathways for kids. So therefore, the child has to either drop out or take the high set once they learn the language. So those are real challenges for people. So think about, nurses and doctors and engineers that come to our city that are coming from the Philippines or from Nigeria, or people that are intended to do great things for our community, whose families don't speak the language, and all of a sudden we don't have any ways to support them. Oh, yeah. And that's a real challenge. So that is the thought behind the Multilingual Academy.
Right. I'm curious what a typical day would look like in the classroom there.
Yeah. So we teach using an ESL framework. So English as a second language framework. So the child from Ukraine is not being taught in Ukrainian. The teacher doesn't have to be fully immersed in Ukrainian to be able to teach the child. The teacher is ESL trained.
Okay.
So it is a series of techniques and research-based that allow a monolingual teacher, English, to teach the content to the Ukrainian child and the Honduran child or the child from Nigeria in the same classroom at the same time,
Wow.
using strategies that are related to sheltered instruction and pretty much research-based instruction. So allowing the child to acquire the language while immersing themselves into the content. Now, of course, that's when it could be more challenging, the nuances of, well, the Ukrainian child might have a ninth grade level mathematics, while the child from Venezuela has a 10th grade level mathematics level. So therefore, the differentiation comes in through programs. So we have Apex. It's a program that we bought for all of our students in middle school and high school, allowing students to receive content specific in English for that particular content area, for algebra or any type of content. But the beauty of the program is it comes with stimuli that goes beyond just listening to the teacher. So pictures and graphics. And
Right.
So allowing the child to anchor their knowledge, their schema, what they know with the new content. So it is academic, it is linguistic, but there's a component related to civics. You know, we expect children to learn the American way, which is, you know, a culture of respect, how we treat women, how we treat children, how we treat teachers, how we treat our flag, how to become an American.
Right.
We don't want necessarily for our students to become assimilated, but we want them to be acclimated. We want them to not abandon who they are. And of course, we can have the argument. People will say, well, reject your country, your identity, and become an American. I think both things can happen. And actually, when you value someone's culture, but you also value the American culture, and you learn to respect the American culture, I think you're a better human and a better citizen. It enriches who we are.
I think you're a better community.
We're a better community.
If you think about it. All right, so we've got a lot of ground to cover here. What was the third charter?
Yeah, it's the
Innovation?
Opportunity School.
Opportunity.
And the
okay.
Opportunity School is kids that have high at-risk indicators. So homelessness, foster care, kids that early in their lives they already have kids. They're raising a family. We have also kids that are working full-time because they're the main providers of income. So what happens is a child that is the only or main provider of income, what they do is they quit. They drop out. We want to give those kids a pathway. Life is tough for many families, and for people that are, that have been able to reap the benefits of a good life, middle class American life, it's hard for them to understand what struggles our kids are facing, real life struggles. So we cannot just pretend that the one size fits all model will definitely meet the needs of our kids. Our society has changed dramatically. Between homelessness and foster care is almost 1,000 kids.
Wow.
Think about the poverty. We went from 32% poverty in Billings 2 years ago to about 39%. So more people are experiencing poverty and homelessness. So we are allowing the Opportunity School to become an alternative pathway for kids. It is proficiency-based, which we already have that on the books per Montana law and our board policy. It is not reading Shakespeare, answering 10 questions, passing the test. No, this is more hands-on learning.
Okay.
So we have two main pathways. One is a CTE, is career technology. So think about computer repair, computer programming, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, Python coding, all of those things that the kids will learn to do. Because if you know how to do Python, if you know how to do artificial intelligence and you get your certification from Microsoft that allows you to execute that knowledge, you can be employable when you're 16, when you're 17. No one is going to take that away from you. Whether you graduated or not, you will have that for you for the rest of your life. And the next pathway is a criminal justice pathway. So we're working with some active members of our community, civic leaders at the city level, at the county level, to bring law enforcement opportunities for kids. They can also do nursing. They can also do, there's so many elements to that pathway. They can be firefighters.
Yeah,
they can be,
right.
So all of those things, we're going to allow the students to
job training.
There you go. Experience that. It's a 3-year program, so it's a 3-year graduation pathway for those kids.
Well, let me ask you this though: if this student is the main money maker for their family, where are they going to find the time?
Well, they're already finding the time. So they're already some of these kids they work, they go to school.
But work after?
And they work after.
Oh, okay.
So some of these kids are finding the time, but many kids are quitting school because they can't afford to do both.
Right.
So we're not saying that we're going to reduce the expectation, and we hope the public understands that. It's not that we're lowering the expectation and there's no curriculum. So we're not doing that. The child must be able to master and do and execute. But the levels of the types of skills that are asked to master are more relevant to real life experiences.
Sure.
How do I know that? Well, I know that because 2 things. Research, number 1, talks about the new epidemic. Is called the dropout. It's the new epidemic.
It is.
And when specialists on the field have surveyed kids that have dropped out, one of the main concerns is the lack of pathways. Many kids don't see themselves within the current schooling system. They don't see their lives connected to the learning. And people might think, the opportunity school is going to become a discipline school for the drug addicts, that's not the case. We already have discipline schools, which is the Frameworks program, which, by the way, is going really well. This is not a discipline school. This is an alternative pathway for graduation. I also know that the kids struggle with pathways and opportunity, and there's more to the research. But I know that because of Project Engage. So we had Project Engage in the month of October, where we invited dropouts, 100 of them, to the Lincoln Center. We had lunch. Only about 25 to 30 kids showed up. We learned a lot from meeting those kids.
Sure.
Many of those kids don't see themselves part of the school system. Many of them have been bullied. Many of them have been rejected. Many of them don't feel accepted, and they don't see themselves acquiring the knowledge and skills that they need to be successful in life. So they drop. But we learn also that not many of these kids came with their parents. Not many kids came with their parents. Many grandparents we saw taking care of kids. Yeah. And by the way, we're having another Project Engage session on April 23rd. So for anyone who is listening to this or watching this interview, make sure that you write this down. April 23rd, Lincoln Center at noon. If you know someone who is under the age of 18, who has dropped from school, it will be a good opportunity to bring those kids back. We're going to have counselors, we're going to have principals. We're going to explain to these kids what their pathways are, the options that they have. Many of them will be invited to join the Opportunity School if they have an interest for the next school year. Many of them will be invited to do HiSET. We usually invite organizations that job corps, where we shall connect students with career pathways. So we want to bring those kids, listen to them, but also give them a pathway. We don't want them to not have a pathway.
Right.
Because if we go back to what we have experienced in the city for the past 4 months, we've seen an increase of youth violence, acts of violence committed by 12, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds. And the common variable there has been that these kids drop from school. So we cannot just sit and chill out and expect that to change unless we do something different. And as the superintendent of the largest district in the state of Montana, and the superintendent for the only district for the city of Billings and the largest in the Yellowstone County, it is our responsibility to do something about these kids.
Do you see this becoming a more frequent gathering? I mean, twice a year is okay, but it seems like maybe we need more.
Yeah, so we want to invite dropouts twice a year.
Okay.
But the proactive approach, the systemic strategy is the opportunity school.
Right.
Because the opportunity school, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the middle schools and we're going to look at at-risk indicators. And we're going to look at how the students are doing in middle school. And if you're an 8th grader, you have 40 absences, you're failing your grades, you're not doing well, most likely you might drop out. And isn't only because it's not about intelligence, in many it's about motivation.
Right.
You know, when you go home and you don't have a warm meal, you don't know if you're going to have a safe night because you don't know if you're going to be victim of abuse of some kind.
Yeah. If you're just surviving, you're not going to worry about going to school.
You are not motivated. School is not free. But if we can bring these kids to the opportunity school, we connect them to the mentors that we already have lined up, and we discuss career pathways. What are your interests? What are the things that you like to do?
Right.
Once you let us know that, we're going to find a way to match your interests to the opportunities that are real out here.
Okay, now the safety levy. Tell me about that.
So safety levy is our national organization did an assessment of all of our facilities. So the safety levy ask wasn't something that I just closed my room, my office, and I came up with this bright idea of the things that we need to ask. The safety levy ask responds to a national organization assessment of all of our facilities and systems and procedures, etc. They're bringing best practices because they see not only our district, they see districts across the nation, and they found 58 things that we have to do different.
Just in District 2?
Yeah,
Just
58
here.
recommendations.
Wow.
For things that are not working well, things that could be improved. But according to what they said, well, you're doing a lot with little resources. So they felt that we actually were, relatively safe, but not fully safe. And, parents, when they send their kids to school, they're not thinking, is my child is going to have a 40% chance of being safe? They want 100%. I want my kids to be 100% safe. And, you have schools that don't have camera systems in 2024. You want to go back to see what happened in the hallway, and there's no cameras in the hallway. There's no cameras outside. There's no cameras in the cafeteria. The principles that say, intruder alert. Let's say it's an intruder alert,
Right.
and half the building can listen to the message because the intercom doesn't work. Or you get visitors to the building, and you don't know if that person can be around kids. We don't. It's just the perception of the secretary. There are systems that exist that if you enter your ID to the system, it will immediately tell you if that person can be or cannot be around kids. So those are the types of things that the audit yielded as needs. Also, the ratio of counselors and students is very high. We don't have enough counselors for students. Nurses, police officers. So the need is great. The challenge that for people as they think about safety, they're thinking about security.
Right.
Most people think about cameras, intercoms, police, but sometimes they don't think about the other aspect, is the mental health aspect.
Right.
And people say, well, that's not the school district's problem. That should be somebody else's problem. They say, well, that's the parents' problem. Well, Well, if they don't have parents, if many of our kids don't have parents, don't have role models, so then whose responsibility it is? It is the community's responsibility. And yes, my kids, I mean, I take care of my kids, but I also expect my kids to be treated with respect. I expect my kids to go to school and not be bullied, right? Mm-hmm. If you go back to what are the causes of school shootings, and you go back to the profiles of the people that have conducted those horrible acts, most of those kids, actually, according to the Secret Service, 75% of those kids were bullied. So the issue with what happens to a school is not solved by having gun detectors or metal detectors or barbed wire or double fencing, triple fencing. Is really about the mental health of our kids. Yeah. And try to get an appointment for a mental health specialist in the city of
Well,
Dallas.
no, I know. And if you look at your property tax, I mean, I kind of looked at mine very, very closely and looked at, schools get all this funding, but mental health funding in this county is barely even showing up. It's like $2 or something.
That is correct. And one of the reasons why we don't have like for instance, if you look at the safety levy, we're not asking for 10 mental health specialists, because the reality is, even though if we fund and we post the positions, we're not going to have 10 people applying for those positions.
Right, they don't exist.
So we know it's going to be 2, because we already know. We open a grant. We hired 2 mental health specialists with a grant, because we had no support for mental health beyond tier 2 and 3. And we struggled to find those people. So we wanted to ask for something that we can actually execute. Police officer, why didn't you put 8 officers? Well, because I already talked to the chief of police.
Don't have
Yeah, you can have 2, but not 8.
Right.
So that's why the numbers are small. And the camera systems. Camera systems for the entire district can range between $5 million to about $19 million. If you want to have the AI version with the camera, those are great technologies. But who wants to see that on a safety levy? $19 million, right. $50 million, $10 million. So what we did is we broke that into pieces, and it's about between the 2 districts, about $400,000 a month. A year. But we have mechanisms to go back to the state and say, hey, we passed a safety levy. We need $5 million in this year to be able to hire for these positions. So we have mechanisms in place to make this work, because we owe it to our children.
Sorry to say we've run out of time, but I appreciate you being here, Dr. Garcia.
No, thank you so much, Lynn.
And thank you for joining us on Your Schools. We'll see you next time.